Those are my bosses, the Rothschilds. Emails drop, and Jeffrey Epstein, who worked on behalf of the Rothschilds, according to him, wrote that in an email, the Rothschilds, who credit themselves with having created which nation state? Oh, right, Israel, the same nation state that is having a bunch of women say that they were ritualistically abused in a forest by rabbis. That's happening in the Knesset right now, that nation state, saying that they were 3-4 years old when this happened.
And if we found 6 men that they were hiding in 2 hours, imagine how many men they are covering up for in those 3 million files.
6 men, hidden on purpose, and that took 2 hours to find. So what's buried in the other 3 million pages they don't want you touching?
I just don't think we really knew until we saw those files come out.
Yeah.
And then you go, oh, well, there's no denying it now. My position on this completely shifted.
Joe Rogan's position shifted. That means something. And now, so did Candace Owens's. Only this time, they're not going in alone.
Would you want to do a series on Epstein? He asked me this about 2 months ago. And what I heard was, would you like to die?
She said yes. He said, let's go. And when Candace Owens and Joe Rogan start digging in the same direction at the same time, the names they're pulling up are not random. They are not civilians. And some of them, you already know their faces. But here's what nobody is connecting yet. When the DOJ dropped what they're calling the latest release of Epstein files, millions of pages, thousands of videos, hundreds of thousands of images, the official story was this. It's about transparency. It's about justice. It's about protecting victims. But here's the thing about transparency. When you black out 70 to 80% of a document, it stops being transparency and starts being something else entirely. And 2 people noticed that immediately. 2 people who do not share the same political tribe, who have publicly disagreed on more than a few things, but who both looked at those files and said the exact same thing under their breath. We need to dig deeper. That's Candace Owens, and that's Joe Rogan. And right now, what they're uncovering is sending shockwaves through places you would never expect. Hollywood, yes. Washington, absolutely. But also, and pay attention here, the world of conservative media. The world that some people thought was safe from this. The world that includes a name you're going to recognize before this video is done. Let's start from the beginning. When the Department of Justice released those files, the initial coverage was everywhere. Every outlet ran a version of the story. Most of them focused on the same handful of names, the ones we've been hearing for years. Prince Andrew, Bill Clinton, the flight logs, the island. But Candace Owens, who has been following this rabbit hole longer than most people realize, immediately flagged something that the mainstream press quietly glossed over.
The Epstein case has been officially closed, my friends. He actually didn't even have a client list that he used for blackmail.
She was calling out the spin, because within days of the file release, the official government narrative tried to do something remarkable. It tried to convince you that there was never really a list, that the Epstein list everyone had been promised by the Attorney General herself, who said on camera that it was sitting on her desk. That list somehow became, in the official telling, just a stack of paperwork, general documents, nothing specific, nothing alarming.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
That was said on Fox News, on camera, no ambiguity. And then the walk back came, and Candace's reaction to that walk back was not subtle.
Do you feel like they're laughing at us? I feel like they're laughing at us. We are definitely in clown world.
Clown world, and she wasn't wrong. Because while the official version was being massaged in real time, something else was happening in the background online. Investigators were cracking open those redacted files, and what they found inside changed the entire conversation. Joe Rogan's audience got a version of this story that hit different because Rogan did something specific. He named names on air without hedging, 300 names, and those were just the ones in that particular batch. Now layer on top of that what 2 Congress people discovered when they walked into the DOJ and spent 2 hours reading the unredacted version.
Congressman Massey and I went to the Department of Justice to read the unredacted Epstein files. We spent about 2 hours there, and we learned that 70 to 80% of the files are still redacted.
70 to 80% still redacted after all the promises of transparency, after all the public pressure, after all the congressional hearings.
In fact, there were 6 wealthy, powerful men that the DOJ hid for no apparent reason. When Congressman Massey and I pointed this out to the Department of Justice, they acknowledged their mistake, and now they have revealed the identity of these 6 powerful men. These men are Salvatore Navora, Zorab Mikoladze, Leopig Leonor, Nicola Caputa, Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, CEO of Dubai Ports World, and billionaire businessman Leslie Wexner, who was labeled as a co-conspirator by the FBI.
6 men hidden for no stated reason, and 2 congresspeople had to physically walk into the building and point to the redactions before they were quietly corrected. Think about that for a moment. The DOJ does not make clerical errors on documents this significant. These redactions were deliberate, and the question that Candace and Rogan are both now pushing loudly is what else got deliberately buried. To understand why the Rogan-Owens team-up is so explosive right now, you have to understand the full architecture of what Epstein was doing, because this was not a random predator operating in the shadows. This was a man with systems, infrastructure, international reach. Joe Rogan laid it out plainly.
Well, I don't know, right? So I'm just guessing. Everybody wants to say he was working for the Mossad. He very well could have been. He could have been working for the CIA. He could have been a guy who was on his own, but also working with them. Right? Like a guy that they used, but they never fully endorsed.
Like an asset.
An asset, a fixer, someone who sat in the gray zone between governments and private power, collecting leverage on everyone he touched. The files confirmed he made multiple trips to Russia. He recruited women there. He sought back-channel meetings with Putin. He was texting with Stacey Plaskett in real time during a congressional hearing. Let that land. A sitting congressional delegate, a live federal hearing, and Epstein was in her ear, feeding her questions, directing the inquiry. And this was in 2019, years after his 2008 conviction. The man was untouchable, or at least he acted like he was. 7 minutes from Epstein's text to Plaskett, asking the exact question he told her to ask, on the record, in front of cameras, during a hearing about the former president of the United States. This is not gossip. This is documented. It's in the files. Now here's where things get layered. Because the Rogan deep dive didn't stay in the political lane. It went straight to names that sit at the intersection of celebrity, finance, and global influence. Bill Gates. Joe Rogan talked about the emails. Candace noted the pattern.
And that's what the crazy thing about the Epstein leaks today. The one email
And we're here.
that said that Bill Gates wanted to get from him antibiotics to give to Melinda because he got syphilis.
Now, Rogan himself was careful here. He acknowledged that Epstein could have fabricated this to apply pressure. That's exactly what a blackmailer does. But the existence of the email, the fact that Epstein wrote it, kept it, and it ended up in millions of pages of federal files, tells you something about how Epstein operated.
It's factually true that I was only at dinners. I never went to the island. I never met any women. And
Bill Gates on camera. And Melinda Gates, she was asked about her one meeting with Epstein.
I also met Jeffrey Epstein exactly one time.
Did you?
Yes, because I wanted to see who this man was. And I regretted it from the second I stepped in the door. He was abhorrent. He was evil personified. I had nightmares about it afterward.
Evil personified. Her words. And she's happy, she said in that same interview, to be out of that world. Then there's Goldman Sachs. The top lawyer at one of the most powerful financial institutions on earth, Catherine Rumler, resigned this year after her emails with Epstein surfaced. She called him Uncle Jeffrey. She thanked him for luxury gifts. And she received this message, which Rogan's audience heard read aloud. Uncle Jeffrey, boots, handbag, and watch. And this is the top legal officer at Goldman Sachs, the woman responsible for legal compliance at one of the biggest banks in the world, and she had to resign because of what those files revealed about her relationship with a convicted sex trafficker of minors. This is the world Candace and Rogan are both pointing at. Not just the obvious villains, the whole ecosystem, the lawyers, the politicians, the financiers, the celebrities who attended his parties in New York, Chelsea Handler, Noam Chomsky, Louis Black, the intellectuals and comedians Epstein used as cover proof that if enough respected names are in the room, people stop asking questions.
He was obviously nerd fishing. He was fishing for nerds. And I think he caught a lot of nerds in that net. There's a lot of those
100%.
guys that wound up going to that island. They probably thought, this is great. We get to party.
Now, we need to talk about the part of this story that nobody in conservative media wants to touch, because there is a name being circulated not in the mainstream press, not in the mainstream conservative press, but in the spaces where Candace Owens lives, the corners of the internet where the questions don't stop at partisan lines, where the receipts matter more than the jersey you wear. That name is connected to TPUSA, Turning Point USA, the organization built by Charlie Kirk, the organization that for years positioned itself as the anti-establishment, anti-elite voice of young conservatism. Here's the thing about building an empire on the promise that you're different from the elite. When the Epstein files start unredacting, and when names from inside your world start appearing in documents that should never have mentioned them, you have a problem. Sources circulating in the same investigative networks that Candace Owens has been quietly tapping into, remember. She mentioned being contacted by Xavier Boussard, the same investigator who uncovered the Brigitte Macron thread, are now pointing toward connections between figures inside the TPUSA ecosystem and the broader world of elite networking that Epstein inhabited. Charlie Kirk's wife, a woman who has been largely kept out of the public conversation around this. A woman whose name, sources suggest, appears in connection threads that link back to the same exclusive event circuits, the same donor networks, the same overlap of political ambition and celebrity access that Epstein cultivated so deliberately. Now, Candace Owens did not build her audience by making accusations she can't support. She knows the difference between a trending theory and a documented trail. But what she has said clearly, on record, is this.
Maybe where our government, with all of their resources, is failing, I don't know, maybe it will be up to us. So what can I say, guys? Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. That's not a throwaway line. That's a woman who has been told something, who has been shown something, who is building toward a reveal that she's not ready to make publicly yet, but is clearly moving toward. And when you combine that with Joe Rogan's now infamous habit of naming names on air before the press catches up, remember, he was in the Epstein files himself for refusing to meet with the man.
I'm in the files for not going.
Huh?
Yeah, I'm in the files for not going, because Jeffrey Epstein was trying to meet with me.
He turned down Epstein, and the reason he knew to turn him down was because Alex Jones had warned him years earlier. Alex Jones, who was dismissed as a conspiracy theorist for decades, turned out to be right about the island, right about the compromise operations, right about the documented reality of what was happening inside Epstein's world.
But he was the guy who told me about Epstein's island more than a decade ago, and I thought it was the craziest thing I'd ever heard. I was like, what are you saying? There's an island, like it sounds like a plot in a movie. There's an island where they fly famous rich scientists and politicians, and they compromise them with underage girls and get it on film so they could use it against them. I'm like, what? That sounds like lizard people. It sounds like, 5G creates COVID. Same thing. Yeah. But turns out it was true. And it's one of many things.
One of many things. That's the most chilling sentence in this entire conversation. Because it means there are more things. Things we haven't confirmed yet. Things that people like Candace Owens and Joe Rogan are currently sitting on, not because they want to protect anyone, but because they understand the weight of what they're holding. There is another thread in this story that has barely been mentioned anywhere. A widow. A woman whose husband was well connected enough to move in elite circles. A woman whose grief became, apparently, an entry point into a world she may not have fully understood. A woman whose name is now appearing quietly in fragments in the kind of investigative research that Xavier Boussard and his network specialize in. We're not going to name her outright today because Candace Owens has been very clear about the difference between accountability and cruelty. A grieving widow is not a villain by default, but a grieving widow who was cultivated by the same networks, who attended the same events, who was photographed in the same rooms, who was introduced to the same people, is someone who may have information she doesn't even know she has. This is what elite grooming actually looks like. It doesn't always look like a crime. Sometimes it looks like an invitation to a dinner party. Sometimes it looks like being introduced to a very interesting, very powerful man who seems to know everyone. Sometimes it looks like a friendship that starts innocently and slowly becomes something more complicated. Candace Owens understands this. She's been methodical about it, and her willingness to investigate even within her own ideological neighborhood to follow the evidence into TPUSA's world, into Charlie Kirk's household, into the networks that conservative donors funded, is what makes this team up with Rogan so potentially earth-shattering. Because Joe Rogan doesn't care about your politics. He only cares about what's true.
It's so tangled. The whole thing is just, I think everybody who looks at it realizes this is a rabbit hole that just goes to the center of the earth. And there's so many people involved in it.
To the center of the earth. That's not hyperbole. That's a man who has read the files, heard the testimony, looked at the connections, and recognized that this isn't a story about one predator. It's a story about a system. Let's be real about what it means when Candace Owens and Joe Rogan are moving in the same direction. Rogan has 14 million listeners per episode. Candace Owens has rebuilt her audience from scratch after her split from the Daily Wire, and her numbers are growing. She's not tied to a corporate structure anymore. She's not worried about advertising relationships. She is, by her own description, free. And that freedom is dangerous. Dangerous for the people who thought the conservative media ecosystem would protect them. Dangerous for the donors who assumed their connections to TPUSA and similar organizations were a kind of insurance policy. Dangerous for the celebrities who stayed quiet long enough to think the storm had passed. Because here's what Candace knows and what Rogan is now amplifying.
The media is out there to consistently lie and to protect the elites. They have money, they have power, they do not have the truth on their side. And many of these things that you may have thought were conspiracies, things that I grew up thinking were conspiracies, are so obviously not conspiracies at all.
Not conspiracies. Documented reality. Leslie Wexner, labeled by the FBI as a co-conspirator, gave Epstein power of attorney. The Goldman Sachs top lawyer resigned over her relationship with him. The CEO of Dubai Ports World was mentioned thousands of times in the files. A sitting U.S. congresswoman was texting with Epstein in real time during a federal hearing. And we still don't know what's in 70 to 80% of the documents.
Is there a Jeffrey Epstein right now that we don't know about?
There's a million of them.
A million of them.
A million of them, right now, operating in the same gray zone, collecting the same leverage, attending the same parties, moving through the same elite networks that the old Epstein files are only beginning to map. So, who's running right now? Who's gone quiet? Some of them are obvious. The politicians who appeared in the flight logs are suddenly very busy with unrelated matters. The celebrities who attended Epstein's New York parties have stopped giving press. The Hollywood figures who moved in those circles are doing what Candace identified early.
Some public figures appear to be avoiding public discussion, limiting interviews, or stepping back from the spotlight while controversy grows.
Stepping back, going dark, canceling press tours, letting publicists handle the questions with vague, carefully worded non-answers. This is the signature move of someone who knows their name is in a document they haven't seen yet. And then there are the ones who haven't been named in public yet, the ones in the TPUSA orbit, the conservative donor class, the figures who assumed their ideological alignment with the right side of the political conversation would protect them from this. It won't, because Candace Owens has already proven she will go after people in her own world when the evidence demands it. And Joe Rogan has already proven he doesn't have an untouchable list. What happens when two people like that get in the same room, metaphorically or literally, and start comparing notes? The Les Wexner lawyer caught on a hot mic moment is instructive here. That was a lawyer whispering to a witness in a congressional probe, into a hot mic. That's the level of panic that is circulating in elite circles right now. These are not calm, confident people who believe the files won't reach them. These are people telling their most powerful clients to shut up before they make it worse. Here's where we land. The DOJ released 3 million pages. They hid 6 specific men inside those pages until 2 congresspeople physically went to the building to point it out. They've confirmed that 70 to 80% is still redacted. Online investigators cracked the redactions within hours of the initial release and found things the DOJ explicitly did not want public. Candace Owens is building toward a series. She has a source, Xavier Bussard, the same investigator who cracked the Brigitte Macron story, and she has acknowledged on camera that she knows the risks of going down this road. Joe Rogan has shifted his position. He said publicly what he wouldn't have said 2 years ago. He's read the files. He's named names. He knows that Alex Jones, the man everyone dismissed, was right. And somewhere in the intersection of conservative media, celebrity gossip, political accountability, and a widow who may not even know what she knows, there is a thread that neither Candace nor Rogan has fully pulled yet. When they do, this story will not look like any Epstein story you've seen before, because this one doesn't end at the usual suspects. This one keeps going. Stay tuned, because they are.